has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up. But you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start the old nation with myself for reservation. I'm gonna start the old nation with myself for reservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And welcome, pop pickers, to the latest episode of Political Unmuted. The number 36, the 36th edition. The number 36 is associated with energy, which quite frankly does not include me tonight. I'm absolutely knocked out. So let's see what the rest of the team are feeling like. Sam, how's the job going? That's the first thing we need to ask you.
It's going very well. I'm very, very busy. I'm very, very busy. And I'm very glad the kids are going back to school next week.
Busy is better. Busy is better. Laura, you've been doing battle with Organise. Organised, by the way, is the mass mailer of the Labour Party, specifically designed to losers membership and make everybody cross with the poor old secretaries of the party, designed to destroy us. Sort of, are you managed to come to terms with it yet?
Just about. Luckily, I haven't had to use it too much, but I'm getting there slowly.
What it does, people, if you don't get the mass mail from the Labour Party, it's because it decides a quarter of the people it's not going to send it to you. That changes every time, that quarter of people. Stuart, are you elected? Are you selected yet?
Oh, muted. Not at the moment, no. Tomorrow.
Fingers crossed. And finally, what was that, Samantha? Was that a Vulcan live well and prosper? Oh, that right, okay. Paul, how are you? You do more work than any other human being on the planet. Are you exhausted or full of beans?
I'll go for the first option. Now I'm exhausted.
I'm not surprised.
Oh.
I'm noticing on the stream a whole load of guests and listeners. Well, you are so welcome. Hello, God bless you all. Thank you very much for joining us. My moment of the week, I am going to share with you. I rarely do, but I have just missed a very interesting talk on sphagnum moss, and that was because I booked onto the talk, and then they didn't send me the link, so I missed it. I am heartbroken. Paul, what's your moment of the week?
My moment of the week was attending a TUC organised meeting with our MP for Sedgefield, Paul Howell. It was all about getting key workers a pay rise. So the TUC was saying, look, we think key workers deserve a pay rise, because basically it means if they don't get a pay rise, it's actually a pay cut. So those people who've been working so hard throughout this pandemic, and this included all sorts of key workers, whether that's like people who collect refuse or people who work on the NHS or all sorts of different key workers, they deserve a pay rise. And Paul Howell agreed that the key workers have done an absolutely fantastic job, but the conclusion was that he didn't know what writing to the Chancellor saying he supported a key worker pay rise, he didn't know what that would achieve. And he's not going to sign the letter because, you know, even though key workers are absolutely great, he's not willing to say that they deserve a pay rise. So it's like, maybe just get a bit more applause in, or something like that, and just say, "Oh, we think you're great, we think you're absolutely brilliant. Here's a contract to our mates,"
I'm trying to persuade Paul Howell to bring the Treasury to Forest Park in Newton Aycliffe. At the moment, Darlington's the front runner, but I've written to him saying, "What about Forest Park in Newton Aycliffe?" Whispering the Chancellor's ear. So if he brings the Treasury to Forest Park in Newton Aycliffe, I'll be very pleased. But this is a Tory problem. They lie, and they tell the key workers how brilliant they are, but then they won't pay them the money, and it's not on. Laura, what's your moment of the week?
Because I'm sort of just politically disillusioned at the minute. I'm not watching any news or anything. I miss a lot, but on Saturday night when we did our Socialist Night live show with Socialist Think Tank, we had a discussion with Ray Goodspeed from, well, he's not in Pride, but he inspired the film Pride, him and all of the group. And we ended up having a really in-depth discussion about trans rights, which, as you know, we all cis people on there, with the exception of Ray, who's gay, and it was strange because it just felt really natural, and I think it went really well. We managed to just be polite and respectful, and it was really informative for me. I felt like I learned a lot, and it was just really nice to be able to have that conversation, and not get it completely wrong. It was a really nice experience. I try not to talk about it too much because I haven't lived that experience, so I feel like it's not my right to then dictate how things should be. I think it's important that you listen, but it was really informative, and I really enjoyed it, and I got a lot out of it. So yeah, that was my moment of the week.
Congratulations, and a really important topic, and one which you're absolutely right. It's one where one feels that one doesn't have the right to comment, because that's a route I've not walked. Stuart, moment of your week.
Oh, this is a pretty simple one. I chopped a tree down, which sounds terrible, but don't worry, because I'm planning to plant 2 more elsewhere in a better spot. So it actually made me think that, I'm looking forward to what's coming up in this year, and hopefully we can get some trees planted across the county. I know that Chiltern would really like to take ownership of some of the woodlands around our area. We've seen some losses recently, and the public aren't best pleased. So I'm excited to get back planting trees. The county, you're very welcome, and please do. The big problem is getting hold of the land, and then working out how you're going to maintain the trees into the future. Councillor Carl Marshall announced that he wanted to see a tree planted for every child in school. And we asked, how many are there? He didn't know. 69,000. So the officers have been like this for a long time. Anyway, we've got our scheme together, and we're going to be we're planting tens of thousands of trees in various things. But this scheme, we're going to plant £69,000 with a group called Oases, who work on climate change with schools, and that will all be happening. Please get in contact. Tell your town council to get in contact, if necessary, through me with the county council. We'd love to work with you to plant trees, unless you want to do it on your own, in which case, God bless you. Have I missed you, Samantha? Are you last but not least? Moment of the week.
I got vaccinated yesterday. Woo! It's been really weird because I got vaccinated because I am a carer. I care for my children. Of course, everybody cares for their children, but I have disabled children. I'm a parent carer. And there's been some really bizarre reaction to that on social media. Thankfully not negative towards me directly, but I've seen people sort of sniping at me on their own Facebook status about saying yet another person under 40 getting vaccinated, but I have not yet had my letter. And had another. I've got a friend who's in a similar situation to me, who did have quite negative comments on her post when she talked about it. Look, nobody's jumping the queue here. The government got convinced that, which is the truth, that they can't afford for people like me to get sick. Because if I get sick, my kids have to go into social care, and there are no social workers. There are no respite foster carers available to look after kids with special educational needs during a pandemic. So please do not worry. Nobody's jumping the queue. Everybody's getting the vaccines. Just hold on tight. But yes, I went to the new vaccination centre in Darlington, which is literally run by the army, which was a very interesting experience. So I'm a bit groggy today, but I'm all right.
So I felt grotty day 2 and 3. The first day I was fine. No, this doesn't affect me. And day 2 and day 3, I felt a bit grim. But it's all imaginary. It's your body fighting an imaginary illness.
Yes.
It's not because you've got COVID, but you just feel like you've got it. That's all.
Julie says, am I microchipped now? Well, I am constantly microchipped, so I'm not worried about that.
You love Big Brother. This is the question.
I love Big Brother.
We all love Big Brother when we've had the injection. I got a sort of a little grief on Facebook from anti-vaxxers when I announced that I'd got it. Sort of they're angry with you for believing the what they see as the propaganda. Anyway, okay. I've asked you all, haven't I? Yeah, I've had you. Paul, have I had your moment of the week? Well, yes, yep. It was. She said, right, okay. Well, in that case, we're making huge progress today, and
now it's time for the big story.
Graham Stead, I agree with you. That must be a first. I've just seen your comment about getting vaccinated. By the way, is that other chappie here? What's Stephen Humphrey? Is Stephen Humphrey here today?
I think he's been tagged in, but no.
I am so disappointed that he didn't take us up and come on. Pass the message back to Stephen. He's really very welcome, and I'd love to have him on this team. Genuinely.
Didn't he want to talk about privatising the NHS?
Well, go on. Then talk about you've got 3 minutes, Paul, and then I'll show you.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm saying he wanted to talk about privatising the NHS. And
okay, well, let's
advocating for it, I believe.
If he comes on, he can lead off on it. There's an offer he can't refuse. Okay, the big story today is Labour scraps the Liverpool election shortlist. Now, Laura, you're leading off on this. I suspect that some of our listeners won't know what this is about. So can you assume somebody who knows nothing about any of this and sort of give the whole background to what's going on, and then then share what you feel about what's happened? Is that okay, Laura?
I'll do my best, John. I'll give it a go. Okay, so back in December, the mayor for Liverpool was arrested, and so the Labour Party thought perhaps he shouldn't stand again until his court case is over. And so they said, right, well, come the elections, there's a load of elections, as you probably know, you'll see people campaigning, maybe knocking on your doors, maybe not. They're coming up in May. That's right, isn't it? And so the mayoral elections for Liverpool are going to be happening then as well. So there's a process that you have to go through. You have to apply, and then you have to interview to get on a panel, and then you get selected. And there were 3 candidates that were chosen. Wendy Simon, who is the acting mayor, I think, Anne O'Byrne, who is the deputy mayor, and Anna Rothbury, who's the Lord Mayor. So all really experienced, all women. all really successful, really well known in the.
One of them black. One of them black.
Yep. Anna Rothbury is black, and they're all doing a wonderful job there. If Anna, for instance, got elected, she'd be the first woman and the first black woman to be elected as mayor in Liverpool. So really big deal. Everyone's really excited about it. And then I think it was the day before, it might have been, it was very close to the actual selection of the candidate, because you only get one. So these were all vying for the same position. They got told that this wasn't right and we need to do another selection meeting. We need to go through the process all over again. They interviewed a load of people and not one of those women got through the shortlisting. And so none of them will be on the ballot to find out who the candidate is. And subsequently, Liverpool now have two new candidates with Anthony Lavelle and Joanne Anderson. Just to make you aware that the previous fella who got arrested was called Joe Anderson, but they are not related in any way, shape or form. So let's not go throwing those stones, because that's not right. So you can imagine that the three initial candidates are fuming, essentially because they haven't been given a reason. This was just decided. And it looks like the process is still just happening and they are being left behind without any good explanation as to why they were deemed unsuitable. After they'd gotten through one lot of panel hearings, and then the second lot they'd said no. I don't even know why there was a second lot. They've given them no information whatsoever. And so I think Anna is going to, she's launched a sort of investigation, and she's going to take them to court for it, I think, because she thinks it's unlawful and it's not right, essentially. And this comes after a string of similar events up and down the country, probably none quite so high profile as this. We've had a lot of suspensions. We've had no reasons for a lot of those. We tend to get to election time and people can get parachuted into places. This just seems like it. I mean, you know, there's an argument there that Liverpool is a very, very left-wing city, and more power to it. It's fantastic. I love it. Very socialist. And I think especially Anna Rothbury, she is a very vocal anti-racism campaigner, anti-fascist. You know, she gets out. She's always very left-wing. She's very vocal. She works really hard. And it seems like perhaps our position at the minute is to move away from that and towards the centre. Maybe that was something that the leadership didn't like. These are all ideas, because essentially nobody knows. We've got a clue. So we've been really let down. Liverpool's been really let down there. I think they had three wonderful candidates, one in particular who would have, you know, made history. So yeah, not a very happy time for Liverpool. Or the Labour Party.
All the Labour Party are the supporters of those people. Do you think it's sort of, Stuart, let's move to you now. I mean, do you think that this is going to damage our chances of having a Labour mayor in Liverpool? Do you think it'll be that terminal, or do you think this is that they'll pick up with the two other candidates and move on? What's your take on all this?
I think it's damaging. It's always damaging. Whenever you're given the newspapers an opportunity to create a headline, no matter what the content is, that's damaging. When there's the content that is, as is going on, that's deeply damaging from both sides. It's used as a means to ensure that you don't get elected, but it also damages the membership and the teams and the links that are built up that are fighting to get people elected. It's a disastrous position to be in, I think, electorally.
I mean, what I think is that you sort of, when you have a situation like where sort of many people on the right of the party actually disengaged to a degree as they saw members of the left coming in and taking positions, and sort of now what's happened is that when you've eliminated the people from the left, you've disengaged their supporters. Who's going to do the door knocking? Well, sort of, if we're allowed, who's going to do the campaigning? And at the end of the sort of, you just end up with an activist base all of whom have just had the stuffing kicked out of them. It's very worrying. I'm going to come to you last, Samantha, because I've got a particular question for you. Paul, what's your take on all this? And what's the solution?
I think the solution is to let members choose the candidates who are put in front of them in the process that was originally set out. I think changing the process at the last minute just makes everyone confused, makes everyone upset. I know the people within Sedgefield Labour Party were upset, and this is from all backgrounds within the Labour Party. So this is people who would love to see Tony Blair make a return as Prime Minister, and this is some people who would love Jeremy Corbyn to have been Prime Minister. All of the people within the Labour Party, within the spectrum of the Labour Party, who are county councillor candidates, have been asked to do something else on top of what they're doing. And look what the outcome might be. Liverpool shows us what the outcome might be. You might not be able to stand as a candidate despite being selected by the people who are members of your party and having already been through a quite rigorous vetting process that I don't know whether other parties go through this or not, but I don't get the impression that they do. I may be completely wrong there. But we know that the internal processes of the Labour Party are rigorous, and it's just such a shame that people are being made not to stand down. I've heard of a number of members who have, at the very last minute, while they're waiting in the waiting room for their selection meeting for county councillors, city council, things like that, have been suspended while sitting in the waiting room of a Zoom room. That's not good. That's not good. Even if those people deserve to be suspended, this shouldn't be routine. How likely is it that you find something out just before that meeting and they've not been told why they're being suspended either? So in this case, these people haven't been suspended from the party, but they aren't good enough candidates to stand as Liverpool Mayor. And I think that we need to take a position on this one. And I'm with Joe Solo on this one. So I've got my Joe Solo t-shirt on tonight. So for those you can see, you take on one of us, you take on all of us. That's what we need to be. We need to be united within the Labour Party at the moment. And I don't care what faction of the Labour Party you're perceived to be from. Come after the members. All the members should be saying, what are you doing? The staff, who may also be members, but the staff are supposed to work for the membership of the party so that we get democratic decisions to create the best possible opportunity for Labour Party people to be elected. That's where we are. That's what we should be doing.
I think that's one of the sad things for me, Paul, is that they haven't said what the reason why they were unsuitable. But there have been sort of dark sort of mutterings about sort of maybe they were involved in the bribery scandal and it's, so nobody's actually said, and yet sort of they're trying to ruin these people's reputation by whispers and just absolutely awful. Sam, I've got a question for you. Is this out and out misogyny? Is this out and out discrimination? We had here 3 women, very powerful women, and sort of and one of them a BAME candidate into the bargain. Is this just discrimination, misogyny and racism within the management, the controlling group, I can't remember, I think the leadership of the Labour Party? Or am I just going off on some kind of fantasy? What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really good question. One of the things I was recently asked as a candidate, look at the start for the Labour Party, was if I had ever done anything that might be considered to be embarrassing to the party. And I thought that was quite a difficult question from a class and a gender lens, because women's behaviour is scrutinised in a way that men's behaviour isn't. For example, I was a very vocal proponent and supporter of breastfeeding and breastfeeding in public and not being embarrassed about that. Somebody might argue that that could be seen to be embarrassing to the party. And you can see how a right-wing rag could get that and run with it. And about the different organisations I've been involved with about parenting and using cloth nappies and using slings and baby carriers, you know, super left-wing Labour councillor thinks, you know, you shouldn't buy nappies and you should have your baby strapped to you 50 hours a day. You know, you can see how outrage and embarrassment can be manufactured, and you can see how that happens with women in a way that it doesn't with men, about criticizing what you wear, criticizing how you look, criticizing your sexual and interpersonal relationships in a way that men don't get criticized. What is difficult for me is that we've gone from having an all-women shortlist of 3 excellent candidates to the new shortlist is a man and a woman. So we've gone from 100% chance of having a female mayor of Liverpool to a 50% chance of having a female mayor of Liverpool. And we know that, unfortunately, sexism does play into how people vote. People see men as more leader-like because of our cultural background. So I just think we've got to be really careful in the Labour Party when we're talking about promoting equality of opportunity, that we're actually making that happen in practical terms and not just talking about that because it sounds great, but actually enabling women, disabled people, people of Black and ethnic minorities and any other marginalised folk to get on in higher positions within the party, and not just going, oh, well, like many did with Keir Starmer, who I do support as the leader of the Labour Party. Oh, he just looks like a leader. Well, what does that mean? What that means is he's a man with a nice suit. Come on.
I think you're absolutely spot on there, to tell you the truth. There's a lot of love on the chat at the moment towards you all, a lot of support for what you're saying, particularly Paul, a lot of support for you saying that the membership has to be the driving force behind all these things. A lot of love for Samantha and support for you being a woman who supports women's freedoms. And absolutely, but also people going on and saying it's not misogyny, it's just centrism, and so a lot of lovely comments. Thank you so very much indeed. I've just got 2 things. Oblarim, God bless you. Thank you for your question. We're not going to talk about that tonight. Please forgive me. But somebody will make a note of it, and we'll try and have something thought about it.
Maybe in the second half, I was thinking we could.
Maybe. Yes, that's a great idea, Paul. But not here. Hang on 2 seconds. There was something. And then Graham Marsh and Anne Willis started having a fight on the chat. So we all just lost concentration for a short while. Okay, fantastic people. This is negative for the Labour Party, negative news, which is why perhaps everybody thought it was a great thing to talk about. It's important that we do right. And if the cost of that is negative publicity, well, it's just tough. We must be people who do right. Paul. This is, we're going to talk about a dangerous subject now. It's a subject which too easily gets intertwined with anti-Semitism and anti-Semitic statements. I want everybody, please, my team, but also if you're on the chat, please be very careful what you say. Nobody here is anti-Semitic. Nobody here sort of does not accept the right of Israel to exist. That we sort of, it is not anti-Semitic to criticize the government of Israel, as long as we don't expect more of that government than we would of any normal democratic government. And there is a criticism implicit in this question, so everybody, please be very careful what you say. I don't want anybody getting in trouble, and I don't want this discussion getting a bad name. Paul, Israel not wanting to share their vaccine with Palestinians. Tell us what's going on. Start off from the beginning. Tell everybody about the issue, and then share your thoughts on it with us, please.
How far do you want to go back on this one? So I'll just start at the beginning of the vaccine. Israel have done an absolutely outstanding job. They're probably the world leaders in vaccinating their people. They have secured a lot of vaccines from different sources, and their vaccination is actually providing a lot of the data for the rest of the world. And a lot of the reason we know that certain vaccines are so good is because of the Israeli effort, and that has to be applauded. The issue we have here is that Israel do not recognise Palestine's right to exist at the moment, the Israeli government. And there are 2 million Palestinians living in the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. And Israel's government, Israel's services have the ability to decide what goes in and out of Palestine. Now, what's happening is you've got this really, really high rate of vaccination in Israel, and in Palestine, you've got a terribly low rate. And the World Health Organization is using a poverty fund to try and get them some vaccines. Now, every time they try and get some vaccines into Palestine that the Palestinian authorities are trying to secure for themselves, they're having trouble getting those into Palestine because they have to go through Israel, and Israel are deciding whether or not to let the one cardboard box with 1,000 vaccines through, and they're slowing down the process. So Palestine have tried to secure some Sputnik vaccines from Russia for their frontline emergency workers working through this pandemic. And the people of Palestine, that's, for them, it's been delayed. They aren't having this mass vaccination that Israel are having, and they're living within the same territories, sort of, because Israel keep on annexing more of Palestine over time. Now, the Palestinian people, they're humans, they deserve to be vaccinated just as much as anyone else, but you might argue that Israel's government see Palestine as being a hostile force, so that's why they wouldn't vaccinate them. But a lot of Palestinians work in Israel, and the way pandemics work, they don't choose based upon your nationality who they're going to infect. So it would be sensible for Israel to probably try and help Palestine in this case. However, what we are seeing is in Israel now have an excess of vaccines and are able to secure more vaccines. They have traded vaccines with Syria, who is an enemy of theirs, in order to get a political prisoner back. They have also given priority to other countries and are sending their vaccines to other countries. And it appears to be given priority to countries that have chosen to move their diplomats from Tel Aviv, which is the internationally recognized capital for the reasons of Israeli-Palestine conflict, to Jerusalem, which is where Israel want their capital to be. So the countries that have been that have done that have been given priority access to Israel's vaccines, and I believe that this includes the anti-Semitic government of Hungary. Now, Viktor Orban is openly anti-Semitic, yet quite allied to Israel. I can't get my head around that. I just simply can't get my head around that. So there is a huge mess, and again, it's normal Palestinian people who are going to suffer for this. The people who have their hospitals, bombed, and the people who have their houses taken from them. You know, these are ordinary people, and this breaks my heart always, every time.
Paul, have the Israeli government been restricting the access of vaccines only to Gaza, or have they been restricting the access of vaccines to Palestinians in the occupied territories? I got muddled when I was reading the thing myself.
It appears to be, in general, it appears to be all Palestinians. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but it's people in the occupied territories, and it's people in the West Bank, and it's people in Gaza.
Okay. First of all, Carl Alexander Rosser, even leaving aside the moral aspect, it's massively short-sighted on the Israeli government's part. Do you agree with that statement, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. These people live side by side pretty much, you know. You're definitely going to, I mean, we need to see how these vaccines work. They seem to be taking effect. If they work brilliant, then everybody's protected, but you can't have people who live next door who aren't, you know. It's not fair. And it seems that there's sort of this weird, I can't claim to understand everything that's the history of Israel or Palestine, but it seems that they've sort of gone, you can't self-identify as a Palestinian. You can't be, you are one of us because we're in charge. So until they have to then look after them and give them vaccines, they know you can look after yourself. So it's sort of like an either or situation, but surely they've got a duty of care to look after the citizens who live there. I think it's reprehensible.
I mean, what Vonnie Hardman says, Laurie, is like many other things, the political choices of the Israeli government on this is to treat the Palestinian people like lesser humans. Actions repeatedly taken by the government in Israel are consistently despicable towards the Palestinian people. It's a human rights travesty in the same way that apartheid was in South Africa and segregation in the US. Now, those are very, very political statements, but I mean, do you sort of be careful, Laura? Do you think that that's what it is? Do you think this is discrimination? I mean, what I would have to say is that we've sent no, Britain has sent no medicine, no vaccines to Gaza. We haven't sent any vaccines to Gaza either. In fact, have we sent any vaccines to many places? Are we basically overinterpreting a natural selfishness about these vaccines as some kind of apartheid policy, or do you think that this goes further, as Vonnie has clearly suggested here?
I think there's a really strong argument for what Vonnie said there, and that's probably as I understand it. But at the same time, it's surely the you can't have it both ways. They want, at times they want to sort of say the Palestinian land or the Palestinian people fall under their umbrella and they are the government, and so surely there's a duty of care there to then look after all citizens. And if you want them to be able to just sort themselves out, then surely the aid needs to be able to get to them. So I just have massive solidarity with the Palestinian people, and I feel like it must
just hard not to just feel heartbroken for them at time after time. Samantha, you said on the thing that we're not safe until everybody's safe. Can you explain what you meant by that statement?
I mean, the UK is doing really well at the moment at generating variants of COVID, and as long as you allow COVID to run rampant through a community, you're giving it the opportunity to mutate and potentially mutate to the point where it is vaccine resistant. So we need a global zero COVID approach, and that means helping people out who we have political differences with, because it's no good Israel having this excellent vaccination rate if they're going to allow their neighbours in Palestine to not have such a good vaccination rate and to end up propagating more variations of this virus. There are times that we have to be human. Oblareem says the flu vaccine never got rid of the flu. That's a really good point. But we know that the flu mutates, and that's what I'm talking about right now. We probably will end up vaccinating people for COVID in the same way that we vaccinate people for flu now, where in your flu vaccine you get 2 or 3 different variants of the flu, the most popular ones. You can still get the flu once you've got a flu vaccine, but you usually get it to a much lesser severity, and it's much less likely to end in hospitalization or more difficult complications. And that's the reality of viruses. Viruses and bacteria are very successful life forms. They are very good at what they do, and they will continue to change the way that they work and outfox our medical science. The best solution is to be as swift as possible with this vaccination, get the COVID levels right down to 0 if possible. I know the government have said that a 0 COVID approach is pie in the sky. I respectfully disagree. As long as we allow COVID to circulate anywhere in the world, it is a threat to our global health.
Thank you. I'm going to bring in Stuart. Stuart, Carl Alexander Rosser says it's an existential threat which should trump politics. The last thing we want, Carl, is Trump politics, I'm afraid. But do you think that this is the militarization? What we're looking at in Israel is the militarization of the vaccine, the weaponization of the vaccine as a political weapon, or do you just sort of think that it's one nation just looking after itself and sod our next door neighbours?
We've got to this point where we've got the realization that, this is a global issue. And all of a sudden, we're putting up boundaries and barriers. Borders were always an issue to start with things like infections and pandemics. And we're just making it worse in some ways. We really have to come together as a one nation world just on this one issue for now, till we get a bit more sorted.
Okay, thank you, Stuart. I'm going to move on. We've run out of time a little on that. Next question, Samantha. Killings of Black people in England and Wales at the highest level since 2002. Thank you, people. I was delighted to see this question. This is the kind of question which sort of gets pushed to the bottom, and you brought it to the top of the poll. It's a key issue. Samantha, tell us all about what's going on and why it's so important.
So, in the year up to March 2020, 105 Black people were victims of murder and manslaughter in England and Wales, and that's up from 96 the previous year. The statistics also show that I don't want to get it right. The most common method of killing for both male and female victims was a knife and a sharp instrument, and it also shows that Black people were more likely to be the perpetrators of homicide and murder. Obviously very distressing figures, but what disturbs me slightly more about the article is that it doesn't ask why, and unfortunately these articles are exactly the type of thing that fascists will use to argue that Black people should be feared, and we need to look at this from a class from a really broad spectrum of why this happens, and why, if numbers are going up steadily year on year, why aren't we doing anything about it, or why isn't what we're doing helping to curb the growth? I mean, we know that in the UK, Black people are more likely to live in communities which are affected by poverty, and there's no discussion of that in here. So I would really like to see more of a discussion on that, and more of a discussion on, like I said, what we are doing to try and stop this pattern, and what we can do to fix it. And let's not blame Black people. Let's look at what we can do in society to make this not happen and to get that number down.
Victim blaming
Mm.
thing. Laura, what needs to happen?
Well, I couldn't agree more with Samantha there. I think what needs to happen is that we need to take a good long look at why this is happening. Anne's just made a point, many of it is black on black. So it's not like white people attacking black people. It's not that obviously racist, and yet is so blatantly racist. But not just racist, it's classist as well. A lot of the majority of these deaths occur in severely impoverished areas. It's definitely got a lot to do with what's in your pocket and not really what is the color of your skin. But I think the intersectionality here needs to be discussed. Black people tend to live in poorer areas. There's a reason for that, and we need to be honest about that. And these people, when they're left with nothing, absolutely nothing, and a lot of them fall into sort of social care and systems that don't really benefit them in any way, shape or form, will then fall into groups, find themselves families, and it becomes a gang, and gang warfare happens, and that's when we end up with all these deaths. So the system needs a good shake. We need to look at this more sensibly and start funding things properly, and start treating people better, not like third-class citizens.
Some really good comments on this. Philip Marshall, knife crime is still rife and on the rise after a long, lengthy, worthwhile campaign. It needs to be regarded as a public health issue. Sort of absolutely. And Nick Jones, it is racist. It's the environment that's been created by the rich. I think that's worthwhile exploring. And Paul, would you like to explore that idea? That sort of somehow the fact that the killings of Black people is the highest level since 2002, and it's connected to the rich. I mean, is this just sort of socialist talk running wild? Or is there a truth in that statement?
What we see is any time where violence rises, it tends to be driven by poverty. It tends to be driven by the extremes. So if you look at Glasgow, and I don't know the exact figures on this, but like 15 years ago in Glasgow, there were I think a lot more stabbings in Glasgow than there were in any other country in the world. So any other place in the world. And the Scottish government got a hold of this, and they started to change things, and they started to look at what was going on and address that from the point of view of like trying to stop this kind of cycle of murders that was going on. Now, did people at the time go, yeah, well, that was Scottish on Scottish violence, or that was white people on white people violence? Did they say that? Or did they say, actually, this is the rundown areas of Glasgow, this is the extreme poverty that we're seeing that is causing this issue? The thing that links these people together, who are getting them like involved in knife crime and different things, it isn't the colour of the skin. The colour of the skin has nothing to do with it. Apart from, I'll get to what it does have to do with in a second, but the fact that they like are being violent with knives to one another, it isn't because of the colour of the skin, because any person in poverty would be in a similar situation. However, because they are black, is that meaning that they are more likely to be in a poverty situation? Are they more likely to be ghettoized? Are they more likely to be in areas that aren't safe, that have more crime? Yes, that is the problem. So that is what we need to address. And also, we need to make sure that these people who are, killing each other or whatever, whoever that is, whatever the colour of their skin is, they need to feel safe. People who don't feel safe carry knives. I would recommend that you listen or or read Akala's book, Natives, which is absolutely superb. There's loads of this on there, or you can just, if you just type into YouTube Akala on knife crime, he'll explain it way better than me.
Thank you. The comments are fabulous this week. Jake Ratcliffe, more black racism, more black poverty, more black gangs, more black murders, more black racism, the vicious circle. You don't need to agree with that, but I think it's worthwhile thinking about. Actually, really, I thought was a good. And here's Oblareem. Thank you for coming on, Oblareem, as well. What are your thoughts on Morgan Freeman saying race is an excuse for income inequality? Stuart, is race the excuse for income inequality? What did Morgan Freeman mean by that, do you think?
I'm not 100% sure what he was trying to get at. I think the words, by themselves kind of take something away from what's really going on. Clearly in our communities, inequalities are the driving factor behind some of the issues people face. Like just the day I walked past a lad who was bored silly, and he was sat there talking to himself about cigarettes, and then he said, I'm going to spike you for a lighter. And basically, he wasn't actually making a real threat. He was just bored so silly that he had nothing else to do. The government hasn't really provided him much in the way of opportunity, no doubt, and there's little in the way of alternatives locally for him. I imagine this is, the same across every community in Britain. Those inequalities, there's no excuses for them.
Thank you, Stuart. Barbara Clare, who I know, poverty and the struggle to survive makes people angry. Just a truth.
Can I have one tiny little thing just on Anne's talking about? Yeah, just about poverty. We're not saying that everyone in poverty will do bad things. We're saying you're more likely to be in a really difficult situation if you're in poverty, and therefore you might be more likely to be in a situation where you turn to this kind of crime out of fear and things like that. That's what the statistics show us. We're not saying poverty invents this and everyone in poverty will become an awful person. There's so many lovely people in poverty, and there's a lot of people who do these crimes who actually probably are deep down lovely people. So there you go.
Thank you. I'm so sorry, Paul, to cut you off. It's the strictures of the show. The last question, and I want a minute at the end. Stuart, teachers are going to get sweeping powers to decide exam results in England, having gone mad at the government for doing it last year. This year they're going mad for the government saying they can do it. Are they just troublesome people? What's your take on this, Stuart?
I think people are scared there's going to be a repeat of last year no matter what system's in place. I'm quite hopeful that this might be a bit of a kickstart for people to realise how we teach is probably not the best way to do it. How we measure achievement in our students and our children isn't the best way. Gavin Williams said that this new system will emphasise fairness and flexibility, which I would have hoped had been the way we'd always done it for years and years and years. We do know that the algorithm won't be used again because that's a disaster. And there's also still this fear by universities and employers that these new qualifications won't hold as much value in the workplace at university. It's just, more uncertainty, more unknowns for students.
And tragic for that. Mia Mantri, fabulous comment, but I haven't got time to take it and we've moved on. Paul, Sam, Laura, at the most 2 minutes each, at the most. Okay, and I'm going to have a cut off. I'll go to Paul first because he's the teacher.
On my specialist subject, we've got a big problem here in that we keep on coming up with the wrong questions on this. So I think it's right that teachers are are going to decide the grades because it's the fairest way to do it. However, we have had so many years of unfairness with league tables, with so let's say I'll just give you a quick anecdote in a school. In a school, what you'll do is you'll be told to do your predicted grades, and then what your boss will come along and do is they'll say, those grades aren't good enough, they need to be better. And you'll say, okay, well, we can work really hard, we'll select these children and make sure that maybe we can boost them, and that's probably their potential, but this person with a bit of work might do better. No, your grades are too low, I want you to put them up by 2. And they'll tell you to put them up by 2 grades. Now if you're like me and you're stubborn, you'll say, no, I'm not going to do that, that is what they're going to get. But if you are scared, and if you are on a support plan, and they're saying, you might lose your job if you don't do this, then people put their grades up in order to make the school look better because of league tables, because schools compete against each other to have the best possible grades. So then what you have is this situation where teachers are being forced into situations where they feel they have to falsify their predictions. And then it comes to the exam day, and then they have like 1 day or 2 weeks of grief because their results are way lower than they said they were going to be. And they have that. Or you have someone who's honest who gets 10 months of grief because your predictions are too low, They're actually right, and they're better than what the outcomes were for the other person. So this is a systemic problem, and that's what we need to change.
I used to get cross when I was deputy head in charge of raising achievement that we used to get 60% one year, and they came across and just said, oh, well, you should find it easy to raise it to 62%. No, this is a different set of children. You're raising them from 0 to 62, right from the beginning again. Sam.
Yes.
Exams. Safe in teachers' hands?
Yeah, I think you should trust teachers. Teachers are experts in teaching. I used to be a teacher, and I'm not anymore because I spent loads of time learning about how to be a good teacher, and then I got a job as a teacher and basically got told to put all that in a bin and do what I was told by the government, who knew nothing about teaching. And now with my experience of my kids, I've got 2 boys who are trying their hardest to learn to read the way the government say you have to learn to read, and their brains just don't work with phonics, and it's creating a huge problem where they're learning to read through phonics and then spending the next 3 years unlearning phonics so they can actually read and write and spell things properly. That's the fundamental problem for me. Teachers know how to teach. We've got evidence on this. We've got people who study how to do this properly, and we need to stop treating education as a political football in general and let teachers teach.
Thank you so much. You were going to say something else?
No, that's fine. Let's go.
You're a wonderful person. God bless you. Thank you. Mark Lungley says league tables are for sports, not schools, which I suppose goes with treat education like a political football. Do you agree, Laura? League tables are the problem? You're muted.
Oh my God, that's the first time I've ever done that. Oh, gutted. League tables are in no way the only problem. I think with this, the way this is going, I'm really worried for teachers in general, because eventually when it comes down, the thing is, sweeping powers and everything to decide exam grades, teachers had all the evidence that they needed. They'd been collecting data for years on their kids and how they'd been doing, and then when it came to it, when they could actually be useful, they weren't used. And then it came down to postcodes and stuff. So this for me is, number one, too little too late, and also it really puts teachers in the firing line when it comes to it. I think putting that much responsibility on teachers is going to end badly, effectively, because we the whole system needs to change. Samantha's right, teachers don't get to do what they want to do. They don't get to teach the way they want to teach. It's all ticky box exercises. It's far too much paperwork, far too many team meetings, not enough time spent focusing on the kids in the classroom. and I do really worry about it. You know, when pleasing Ofsted is the thing that you need to do this year, that just, it shows you the whole education system's completely disjointed. And so I don't trust a word that Gavin Williamson says. I don't think he knows what he's talking about. I think the whole system needs a reboot, and just pushing the exams back by 3 weeks is not going to be a magical cure to the absolute balls up that they've made this year. So yeah. I don't know if that was too
from
much.
Jake Ratcliffe. Thank you so much, Laura, and thank you so much, team. We have 3 fabulous questions. 2 of that, one I was going to end with, and I haven't got time because we've all talked so much. And then 2 which have cropped up during the course of the show. What we're going to do is we're going to we're going this is family life in front of our eyes. We're going to take a break now. We're going to listen to No Pass Around. We'll come back from the second half. Sam's in charge, but I'm sure she'll allow me to ask my last question, which was a very short, quick fire one. And then we've got a question from Stephen Humphrey about the Euros, and a question from Oblareem about Biden and the USA. If we can take those as well, Sam, but you're in charge. So goodbye, everybody. Actually, most of you stay with us right through to the death. We're not going to spend very long this week. But thank you if you're going to go now, thank you for being with us. See you next week. Somebody said this show gets better every week, and I am in awe of the team who talk at us. Aren't they just brilliant? Thank you for your comments. Thank you for interacting. Goodbye, everybody, and see you in 5.
My name is Jack Atkins and I'm not afraid, and I live and die by this vow that I've made. The only good fascist, a dead one,
Humphrey says he can't come on, but
and around the we are. When I first left all them months ago, I told him I'd come not to kill but to cure. Well, for an ambulance driver my shot's pretty sure. Panorama we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom, and we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. I told my mother, now mother, be strong, for the left way is right and the right way is wrong. And you can stick that on my grave when I'm gone, for I'm a real we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. Fascists have come for our freedom, we ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today. Cast may be cast, and the cast may be cast, But you armies of darkness, you best do your worst. 'Cause to win, yeah, well, you gotta get past us first. And around here we are. There'll be no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom. We ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here, no pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. No pass around, no pass around, no pass around today. The fascists have come for our freedom. We ain't gonna give it away. There'll be no pass around here today.
Kick off with my question to the team. Sam, should we just go on? Yeah. You got a 30-second answer. That's all you're allowed. Today, Unite, and I've lost it. I had it all lined up on my phone. Unite have published a series of things that they want to come out of the budget. One of them was that they want a pay rise for key workers. Another one was that they want furlough continuing. A third one was that they do not want £20 cutting off universal credit. I can't remember any others. But sort of, there's three of you. If you can cheat if you want. I was wondering if there was one thing that you would want the Chancellor to say tomorrow in his budget, and remember, we already got 30 seconds to tell us what it is, what would be the one, and you can all do this at home as well, so you can put in the chat, what's the one thing that has to be in tomorrow's budget for you? Let's start. Paul.
A redistribution of wealth away from the billionaires to whom all the wealth trickles up to. We've seen during this pandemic that all the economic stimulus has eventually risen to increase the wealth of those people, while the people who it appears to be supporting actually are in real trouble. So we have to rebalance the entire economy. We can't have an economy that trickles up. That's what needs to be done. That's a long-term solution, and it needs to be done. Tax billionaires in the short term to get redistributed, and then fix the economy so that the world doesn't work simply for corporations and simply for the people with the most capital.
Spot on. Money makes the world go around, and when you let the billionaires store huge amounts of it in offshore banks in the Virgin Islands, there's no money going around, and we're all poorer. When you take it off them, they get it back as well. We just spend it with them straight away. But it gets that money going around and we're all wealthier. Sort of, no, that's not good enough, Annabelle. But sort of that isn't something you can put in the budget. What's going to be happening in a moment is I'm going to stop asking these three people and we're going to look at what you want, people. What is the key thing for you
in the budget. I know what mine is, but I'm just the host. I'm going to come to you last, Sam, if it's all right, please. Thank you, Stuart. Above all else, what has to be in the budget?
A continuation of the universal credit uplift payment and extending it to all those people on legacy benefits that are currently excluded from it.
I mean, I just can't see, Stuart, why it is that we have a level of basic support for people who sort of are out of a job, let's say, or who are working 2 or 3 jobs, but still not making enough to live on. We have a level of support which is not enough to support yourself. It's just the craziest thing that we have a welfare net where it actually allows people to fall through the holes. What kind of a welfare net is that? Bonkeroonies on your side there. I'm looking at here and there are 1 or 2 sensible series. Best of luck, Sam, when you come to take us through those. But Sam, what's your sensible suggestion?
I just think we have to look at the 3 million people who've been excluded from any form of government support through this crisis. They're a huge group of people. And I've seen, I'm in a phase, because I am actually somebody who was excluded from government support as a company director. My business was unable to trade, and there was nothing for me. I've seen stories in that group. I mean, there have been several suicides. There's been about 6 different suicides in that one Facebook group through the crisis. And I saw a story yesterday about a lady who is actually sharing food with her dog currently so that they can both eat. The level of poverty we're talking about in that group is massive, and the government has consistently ignored them, consistently ignored any move to support them. It's heartbreaking, and these are the people who the Conservatives claim to support, the go-getters, the self-employed people, company directors. It is shocking and it is heartbreaking, and it's a travesty actually they've been left to struggle on this long.
I mean, it's going on and on and on, and it's just destroying people. I'm getting emails from there's a whole category of people who haven't qualified for help. If you run a business from home and you don't pay business rates, then you haven't been getting the support grant to businesses. You don't qualify. So there's a whole category of people, taxi drivers, self-employed taxi drivers, a whole self-employed hairdressers. These people have had nothing. It's a year now, and no sign of anything coming. Just as a matter, if you find yourself in that category, there is a regeneration grant, and you do qualify for that, but it's about recovery. It's not to keep you going. You've got to be able to say, I need this to recover. Now, there's an overlap there, however. Get in touch with Business Durham and just see if you can so organise your plans for your business that you fall into the category of being able to get that recovery grant. But sometimes you can't, and I'm sorry. It's an absolute travesty. And one chappie wrote to me today and just said, shout as loud as you can, because this is an evil. Right, okay, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to, I've asked me a question. Thank you so much for putting up with me, everybody. Sam's now going to go, and she's got so eventually some people make some sensible comments. Sam, you're all right. I talked to them a bit, but then there's the question about the Euros and the question about that Oblerim. I'm you're in control now. God bless you.
Great, thanks. I want to thank Anne Willis for trying her best to get Graham Marsh to buy me a kebab, by the way. I really appreciate that. I do like a kebab. that's something that me and Anne bond over. I'm going to start back and work my way to the front of the show. So we'll take some of these comments about what should have happened in the budget. Free brown bin. Sort it out, John Clare. Oh dear. Oh, I can't scroll down. Why can't I scroll down that? Will it not let me scroll down? What's the point in a restream if I can't scroll down?
Just while you're trying to scroll down, that is just such a sensible suggestion. A free brown bin would be a really good idea. It's just the cost, and it's simple as that. If the government would give us the money, I would do it tomorrow. But in the meantime, it costs more than the £36 they asked us to pay to empty it. So it's being subsidised, I think, to the tune of nearly £1 million a year from council tax, and there has to be a charge, or it would just. It's either that or nothing. We can't afford to run it at all. Get in touch with your MP.
Do you want? I've got the full version of the comments, but it's hard for me to scroll through because it appears on the screen as it's going. But I've got the Joe Biden one. If you want that, if you want me to read it out.
No, that's fine. I copied and pasted that over, I think.
Oh, good.
Mark Longley says tax wealth as much as money earned by working. I think that this is something about taxation that people don't understand or fully, is that, in terms of percentage of your income, if you're a cleaner in the house of a millionaire, you as the cleaner get taxed more than the person who you're working for, because there's a percentage of your income, and people talk about people on low incomes as if they don't pay tax, but of course we pay tax on everything we buy through VAT, and VAT is the same for everybody no matter what you earn. So that also has a detrimental impact on people with lower incomes. Mark also says, let's start a national study into changing our benefit system into a basic income. Fantastic. Vonnie says universal credit is not fit for purpose. We need total systematic change, and I would have a form of universal basic income. Philip Marshall says there's so much to mention, but mental health certainly needs a mention. The suicide rates are rocketing. This is something that really staggers me in terms of all of the stuff we've talked about education, is that there has not been any strategic planning for helping children get over this year. There's been nothing put in place to support children's mental health services, which are already crumbling. Vonnie says that they had to change how they traded massively because they couldn't access any support from the COVID support grants for their small non-profit company, similar to me. Yes, lots of people saying nice things about, which really aren't going to happen under this government, which is so frustrating, isn't it? We are stuck with them. We're stuck with them until the next election. They are not going anywhere. But yes, breaking news, as we were listening to Joe Solo, No Pasaran, it has been announced that furlough is going to be extended till September. So that's something. We're probably going to spend the next sort of couple of months chewing over whether they think we're actually going to be in lockdown till September, and that's why they've that's a bit worrying, isn't it? But we'll not worry about that. That is good that they're extending furlough. Let's look at the fact that people can't survive on statutory sick pay and raise that to an actual livable rate as well, especially when we are legally mandating people to stay home if they're ill. We need to be making sure that the money we give them to do that is enough for them to survive. And now we're discussing what a brown bin is. That's the thing, isn't it? If you're in a different council area, you've got different bins for different things. Right. Let's
Garden
look at
waste bin. It's a garden waste bin.
Yeah.
I mean, I know you know that, Sam, but I was just telling Matt.
Right. So the question from Oblareem was, what are your views on Joe Biden? After just under 40 days, he has basically signed a non-stop executive orders and is now bombing Syria. Also, I've seen that you have an Alexandra Cortez photo in your back of your room. What are your thoughts on the lies she told, saying how terrible her first-hand experience of the Capitol building riots was until it was revealed she lied and was never there? Well, go to Paul with that, because I have no clue.
Okay, so I don't think Biden is the answer to America's issues. I've said this on a number of occasions. I think he's better than Trump in that he isn't openly racist. Although Malcolm X did say he would prefer an open racist to someone who's just like pandering to people and to liberals. Malcolm X really hated liberals, and it's an interesting take on that one because he thought that was worse than dealing with someone who's overt. I'm not suggesting for a second that Joe Biden is racist. However, I worry that his policies aren't particularly going to help any working class people of any skin colour in the USA, and I'm really disappointed to see that the bombings have started again, or they've certainly stepped up. I don't know the full details on that, but that is really, really disappointing. And I do remember you commented about, do you think the bombings will start again? And we had a discussion around that about how Donald Trump's the only president not to have invaded anywhere, which is absolutely bizarre given he's quite an aggressive perceived figure. So yeah, I'm not particularly impressed. With regards to the AOC stuff, I don't fully know about this, but I did read an article over the break there, and Reuters are saying that she didn't claim that. I watched the video and I thought she did claim that she was in the Capitol. But apparently she didn't ever say that she was in the Capitol. She was in offices next door, and then apparently someone was trying to break down her door and saying, is she here, is she here? And it turned out to be a policeman. So she was always safe and she was being protected. However, because they didn't identify themselves, she had genuine terror. So that's what that was about. So she didn't lie, although I certainly got the wrong impression about what happened to her, and I thought she was in the Capitol building for the riots, but she wasn't. And she didn't apparently say that, according to Reuters. But that's only one source. So,
Anybody else want to weigh in on that one? No.
I think I agree with what Obereem and Paul are saying, but we always knew this, that Biden was not the salvation of humanity, and sort of he was a very, very old man, an absolute neoliberal. He was just, the reason they elected him is because Trump was even worse. And so I never had huge hopes for Biden. He has gone in with the climate change. He does seem to be trying to do something more about the vaccination program, trying to tackle COVID more aggressively. And well, best of luck to him on those things. And as for foreign policy, the reason that Trump didn't do anything was because he was an isolationist. And sort of the worry about that is that America, for all its faults, I'm going to get slaughtered for this, but America is generally a force for democracy in the world. When America starts pulling out of things like the WHO, like the Paris Agreement, then those things lose momentum. And you need sort of America to be a benign interventionist to keep an awful lot of the things going that we need going in the world. And the problem with Trump was that he wasn't having anything with any of them. Of course, the benefit of that, as Paul has pointed out, is they didn't drop bombs on anybody. But this kind of American isolationism, if you remember, that was what they had in the 1930s sort of in the lead up, and sort of what happened is that sort of all these things are going off all over the world, and they get bigger and bigger and bigger. It would have been better if they hadn't have been. So it's a big problem, is that of foreign policy. I have no faith in Biden at all. I think we're all of the agreement. Hopefully, it won't be as bad as the last one.
Was there any other points you wanted to bring in? Any other questions?
There was the one on the World Cup, wasn't there? There was the
right. Yes.
It's quite an upbeat, jovial one.
Yes,
a little bit
It was a
more
sensible
light-hearted
question, believe it or not. And the question was this: so there's been a suggestion that we host the Euros. Now, is that a good idea or not? And Stephen Humphrey, when he put it forward, said, would it not be a feel-good factor to raise the morale of the nation after this kind of morale-sapping interlude, this morale-sapping year? Would it not be a good idea to host the Euros, despite the cost, despite the dangers of spreading it? And what do you think about that? I thought it was a reasonable question. I don't know whether you want to put it, Sam, but that was the question, and it was okay.
I mean, we keep having this dichotomy. We keep having this choice, don't we, between the economy and like COVID, like getting COVID numbers down, and they're always posed as though they're opposites. And I just think it's a really false question. I just think if we need to eradicate COVID from our country in order to have a proper economic recovery, and any quick sort of like eat out to help out on the whole did not have a great effect on our economy, because it helped COVID numbers go back up again and helped us get back into another national lockdown. So I just think we need to make sure that we're asking questions that really make sense in the long term. Yes, having a football tournament probably would increase the amount of money.
But it's in 2030 though. Like, you'd hope that COVID is an awful memory by then.
I thought he said 2020. I thought he said...
Wasn't it 2030?
Oh, I got the wrong end of the stick then.
Was it not 2030?
I thought it said 2020.
Is 2020 the Euros and 2030 is the 100th year of the World Cup?
I don't know. I haven't really seen this story, so I don't know. 2020 was last year.
2020
got right, yes.
To 2021.
Right, okay.
Right, okay. Thank you, Stephen, Jake,
don't know.
and Graham.
It depends. We've been having loads of people coming in from all over the world anyway, haven't we? We have gone for the World Cup today, though, haven't we? This is why I'm thinking about World Cup 2030. Apparently, the government has backed a bid for us to have it in 2030. That's what I heard today, which is what I thought we were talking about, which is why I'm so confusing, talking about the World Cup and 2030.
July 2020 for the Euros. I mean, that does
2021.
See, I agree with the principle. In 1950, I think it was, they had, after the Second World War, they had the Festival of Britain. Now, sort of, it's, again, I'm in danger of rubbing up all the lefties the wrong way, but nevertheless, that raised the morale of a nation that was still suffering from rationing, and which had literally had the hell bombed out of it. And so I think that sort of psychologically, COVID has been at least as damaging to us. And sort of, it may not be the Euro, Stephen Humphrey, but something, and it's certainly not a Festival of Britain, that is 70 years out of date. But the fact is that something to that, and can you remember what the Olympics did? That was just such a feel-good moment, especially the opening ceremony. And I'm agreeing with you. If and the government doesn't, we don't have to pay for it. The government can just spend the money and then sort of say, well, we'll write that off.
Would we do a very good job, though? Would we do a very good job? Like, would we have it in closed stadiums like we're having at the moment, or would it, like, how How would it go? Like other countries have managed to have pretty decent sporting events. I know, like the Giro d'Italia in cycling's run the Tour de France. They all went and occurred and were fine during the summer. The cycling season started again. I like cycling, by the way. Yeah. Anyway, they're all going on. Other countries seem to be coping with this better than us. Should we be saying, hang on, we've got a hang of this COVID thing, one of the worst death rates in the world, but, you know, we're dead good at it. So let's have it. I don't know whether I'd particularly trust this government to organise anything other than handouts for their mates.
Well, they're good at that. I mean, I tend to agree with Samantha. We after the war, after we've got it under control, we didn't try to run the Festival of Britain while Hitler was still in his bunker. We were 5 years after. Sort of this needs getting rid of first. I think putting our heads around some kind of long-term project would be a great idea. Yes. We're all fed up, aren't we? I'm fed up. I don't know about you.
Yes, but at least we're alive. Right, we are going to wrap up now because we're all knackered. And we have reached our limit. It's been lovely talking to you all. The comments have been absolutely spectacular today. Thank you so much for all of your input. Really appreciated it. Stephen, you are still welcome to come along. As you can see, Laura managed to juggle her parenting duties while being on the show. I'm sure you can do the same. And if anybody does want to send me a kebab, that is absolutely fine at any time of the day. Just let me know and I can give you my address. All right, then. I'm going to say bye-bye, everybody. What do you want to say, Paul? Say the thing.
I was almost going to say, what was Laura's budget thing? What do you want to see in the budget? Because you didn't answer.
Yeah, Laura, what was the one thing you thought needed to be in the budget?
In 30 seconds, I'd want to see a big tax rise for massive corporations and a commitment that money will then be ploughed directly into poverty-stricken areas, the NHS and education.
That was worth it.
And my prediction is that there is a 0.1% chance of any of those happening.
There was talk of a windfall tax that was going to be on big companies that apparently Labour are going to oppose for some reason.
We're against that. Labour's against
We're not though, are we? We're not. The members aren't against that. That's literally our policy. Like our policy, it's Keir Starmer's against that. Let's just say, let's not say Keir Starmer's Labour because Labour's are its members.
I can be sure that sort of tomorrow's budget will be one of the things which will be available to vote for in Friday's poll to discuss a week today. Yeah. What a joy this programme is. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you, team. It's spectacularly wonderful just being able to be on here with the four of you. Thank you. Sam, I'll let you finish everything up.
Let's do goodbye again. All right then, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Keep the red flag flying here.